But I would like to request, it was under the mayor's section, but I'd like to request approval to set a public hearing to consider overriding the 2% tax cap for the 2015-2016 fiscal year as established in the General Municipal Law 3C. And just to go back to that $823,000 bill that we have, that's one of the reasons why we need to get the taxpayers set up in case we have to do it. Those expenses we have no control over. In 2004, our annual employer contribution was $54,000, and now it's $823,000. So I think it's prudent to set us up to pierce the cap. If we don't have to, we won't do it. We do have surplus that we always use to reduce our taxes, and if we can get it below 2%, we'll do everything that we can. But if we can't, we need to have it in place so we don't have a problem with the state. So I think it's important that we set the hearing and do that and move forward. So that's my recommendation.
Can I get a motion?
No, Ron.
Motion made the date, I'm sorry.
December 8th, you want to do
December,
it?
okay.
Now, that money's gone up because of lack of performance on the,
Definitely the interest rate environment has been so low that there's no returns on the investments. And just in general, expenses have risen, and that's basically where it is. Our rates have been so low for years. I mean, every 3 or 4 years they say rates are going up. I'm a banker. I look at these things. We're probably going to see a rate increase over the next 2 years, but it's.
I thought that I had read that the contribution was going to be a little bit lower this year. Is that in fact?
It's not that much higher than it was last year, but it's not.
It's not lower.
It's still way up.
Ah,
No. You're never going to see $54,000 again.
Last year we put $500,000 in a surplus.
Yeah.
And all that $500,000.
It was 600.
600 of surplus. And we paid close to $800,000 last year.
Yeah.
In-
Well, where does the state invest that money? I mean, is it all interest rate sensitive? Are they prohibited from anything a little bit more?
Oh, they're
Aggressive.
conservative.
They're highly regulated in terms of what, as a state pension fund, they're very highly regulated. They can't buy
They can't
crazy
put it in a
stuff.
standard and Poor's index.
Probably not.
you know,
Or at
we
least
go-
not a lot.
If we go back over the last 6 or 7 years, if retirement had stayed at a percentage of increase up to 54,000, commensurate with the cost of living, we would have never raised
There's
taxes.
no way.
We wouldn't have been taking money out of surplus. You know,
It's a 1,500% increase.
No. And that's why industry has gone to 401k plans rather than, pension plans like we knew years ago. Because they're more controllable. But when you're in that type of a plan,
And that's totally determined by the state.
yes,
I mean,
it's all state controlled. We have no say in whether you invest.
Do they have options at the state level to make changes that would allow people to invest their own money?
I think at this point, no.
They could legislate it. They'd have to legislate.
there's other stuff they could have legislated. I just go back to it, I'll just go up the soapbox in a second. In 2000, under Patchogue and McCall, they took Tier 4, which used to be contributory to 3% on anybody that was in Tier 4. And they changed the law where now if you're in Tier 4, after 10 years, you don't have to contribute anymore. Considering the fact that, especially in education and government, people haven't been hiring to the degree they had in, the 90s, 2000s, and the early 2000s, probably 80% of the people that are in Tier 4 now, or 70%, are over 10 years. So nobody's contributing anymore. When you speak to the governor, when you speak to the legislature about, well, you legislatively changed it from contributory to non-contributory over 10 years. My sense is you can then change back legislatively for the 3%. Maybe you don't go back with one shot. You do 1% a year over 3 years so people don't get hurt. But when I get back and I saw both the New York Conference of Mayors and the meetings that we've had, you hear the same thing. It's against the Constitution, because the Constitution, New York State Constitution says you can't change a benefit or a given. Well, it's not a benefit. It's a contribution. And when you say, well, why don't you have a judge decide, that's not what the government wants. So we'll let pay, listen, 3%, would it change the 822? Maybe it'd knock it down to 650.
Still.
But you knock it down to 650, we don't raise taxes. You keep it at 822, because we don't know what next year is gonna be. Is it gonna be 822 again? Or, like you said, you know, they're talking about it going down, we don't know. And that's where the wild card is in this whole thing. That is the wild card. So,
Motion.
second,
Second.
and for what page did you put down?
December 8th.
For public hearing,
Following meeting.
for public hearing on December 8th, consider overriding the 2% tax cap for the 2015-16 fiscal year. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good.
Thank you, Mark.
Approve the settlement of the tax